Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today's October 9, 2024. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Also want to thank Frank Zappa and Nick Shargan of Stinkfoot Orchestra for connecting me with Napoleon Murphy Brock. Thank you so much, Napoleon. Where are you calling in from?
I'm calling in from San Jose, California.
First question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
What is the best thing for a human being?
Yeah.
Recognizing things that will assist that person in a life of better health.
Better health. I love that. And what's your favorite form of information, how it comes into you?
Well, it depends. I have a lot of sources of information that are coming in that comes into me. The first source came when I first met Frank, and that source was from my spirit guide telling me that I needed to make sure that I accepted the gig in Hawaii and that I was there August 8th, 1973, because something was going to happen that was going to be something that was in my favor. And Frank Zappa came into the club, and my spirit guide was right. My other source of information comes from the knowledge of knowing and recognizing the intelligence of cats.
Oh
You
my
know,
God, I love that.
meow, meow. Yeah, okay.
That was so good, Napoleon. We're having fun. So, why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Why do they gather information?
Yeah.
Well, question and answer. You have a question, you gather information to find the source, the answer, and the source of the answer.
Yeah. But is this need or want to collect information more innate or more invented?
I think it's out of necessity.
Yeah. Fill in the no. Do thoughts create emotions?
Depends on if the person who is experiencing the thoughts has a clear mind and the thoughts are coming through and they are bona fide and you verify them as something positive.
Yeah. Fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I.
Oh, that's you finished. I was waiting for you to. I don't know what I think until I examine the thought, activate it, or delete it.
Very good. McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. Joan Didion said, I don't know what I think until I write it. But
Mm.
can humans think without language?
Can humans think without language? Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
what they call. It's called instinct.
Yeah. Chomsky says a language is not just words, it's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. Napoleon, what do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
I depend upon intuition. I depend upon instinct. I depend upon knowledge that I've gained over the years that tells me whether or not my instincts are correct and tells me whether or not I should be inspired or deny something that doesn't have positive inspiration.
Your observations of humans in general, are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
Um, I would say basically for humans as a whole, it's more feelings rather than
Yeah.
thinking because thinking is like listening. Thinking, Frank used to always say, and him and I thought this when we first met, and we both knew it before we met, and that's listening is an art. Well,
Yeah.
thinking is on the same level, in my opinion. You
Yeah.
know,
That's really good because Bridget Bardot says, I don't think when I make love. I'm like, good luck. How do you turn your brain off? Like pe- people who meditate say, now think about not thinking. But there's a sticker on a car on my street. It says, don't believe everything you think. And I'm like, well, you could say, don't believe everything you feel.
yeah, that's right. You could.
Two questions from Alan Turing in 1950s. One, is thinking a function of the soul?
No, thinking, I think, is a function of the brain.
Yeah. The second Turing question is, can machines think?
I think machines do what they were programmed to do.
Yeah.
Independent thought from a machine that functions by being programmed, I don't think it can think independently.
Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Happiness and with positive meaning attached to it.
Yeah. Well, Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, he says meaning tends to last and happiness doesn't necessarily last.
I think that depends on the individual. What are you seeking? What are you reaching for?
Yeah.
What is your goal? My goal is to embrace the positive and reject the negative with extreme prejudice. And my other goal is that while doing that, don't forget to smile, because smiles are free. They cost us nothing, but they contain magic.
Dude, you touch my soul. I really appreciate your concise and really articulate, Napoleon. In this question, you kind of touched on, does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're more so detecting it or more so creating it?
Well, consciousness, I think, is split into two different existences. There's consciousness, and then there's conscious awareness.
Yeah.
You see, because you can be conscious and get up and put on your clothes and eat and go out and drive your car, and you're conscious of everything you're doing.
Yeah.
But are you aware of all the things that are happening around you, which
Yeah.
I call conscious awareness?
I love it. That's what I call it. I like that. So what's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
I think it's difficult to measure simply because we have no control over the speed of light. We have
Yeah.
control over speed of thought
Yeah.
because we think it and conclude that we've thought enough about it, and our thoughts conclude that what we were seeking through thinking we found, and so we move forward.
Forward. Audre Lorde, the poet, said, you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Her colleague, Yvonne Rainer, said, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
That question is totally out of bounds for me.
But it's basically asking you,
There's
and
not
you,
enough information, is what I'm saying.
right. But I'm going to just explain further. It's what tool do you gravitate towards most?
What tool and what arena are you talking about?
Yeah, it
Um,
doesn't have to be a tangible tool. It can be non-tangible, but it's like, what do you gravitate towards? I mean, it sounds like what you've said is positiveness, positive awareness would be your one of your main tools.
positive awareness and conscious awareness
Yeah,
are at the top of my list because
yeah,
they are both attached to something that I believe in overall, and it's called truth.
yeah,
Truth is absolute. Drunk,
yeah,
blind, or crazy, it's
yeah,
always the same. It's
yeah,
absolute.
yeah. Well, Shelby Foote says a fact is not a truth until you love it. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. I just thought, what's your thoughts on that?
A fact is not a truth until you love it.
That's what he says. Yeah, I'm just
Well,
curious your
a
thoughts.
fact is only connected to truth if the fact is true.
Yeah, that's it. But
Yeah, absolutely.
Louis Buñuel says, I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it.
Well, it depends on what he's referring to because each thing, each thought, each movement, everything that we do has the ability to have truth attached to it. Now, are you seeking truth and are you accepting the truth and moving on? Or are you going to say, well, I don't? I don't think so.
Yeah.
You know, it's a pretty wide arena, you know, and it's kind of vast the way he gave the statement, because it's a very broad statement. It doesn't it doesn't focus on any one particular area. And
Yeah.
so, you know, it's difficult to answer his question the way he proposed it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I say you put the questions in the context you want. You don't have to answer the question. It's just prompts to get you to tell me your ideas. What new toy do you suggest?
Toy for what?
Whatever you want to apply it to. Anything that's playful in your life. What toy? Again, it doesn't have to be tangible or not.
Uh, the toys that I, excuse me, the toys that I deal with have to do with the mission that I'm on to accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish. And in my life right now, it's music, harmony, and happiness with
Well, that
myself and with others.
yeah. What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
I don't worry. I have
Yeah.
faith that I'll wake up the next morning because I have a connection to my spirit guide, which is connected to all things. Most important, the divine, which is the which put us here in the first place. Wakes me up every morning, and I give thanks to that. Actually, I take it a step farther. I go, thank you. I woke up again. Thank you, God. And then I go and look in the mirror to make sure I'm still the same person I was when I went to sleep. And I'm thrilled to find out
Thank
that
thank God Napoleon Murphy Brock is a saver. What's the function of music?
what's the function of music? Music is medicinal. Music
Yeah.
is medicine. It's
Yeah.
medicinal. It's put in our lives to help us cope with all of the things that are happening, changing, and evolving and passing through by us, over us, under us, and around us.
It's funny, Napoleon, because you touched on what John Cage learned from his Zen philosopher teacher, that music, the function of music is to soothe the soul and make it susceptible to divine intervention.
This is true. I believe parts of what I understand what he said then, because music to me, like I said, it is divine, but it is also medicinal because it cures. Like, for example, if I go and do a concert, like I just did 6 shows with Stinkfoot Orchestra up in the Colorado area.
Yeah.
And at the end of the show, I always say, if you'd like a photo or us to sign a CD or an album, or if you'd like to buy a T-shirt or a poster or something, and you like that autographs, we'll meet you over at the merch stand after we play the encore. And perhaps none of those things fit, and you just had a rough day or something, and you just need a hug. Well, hugs are free.
Oh my God. That's my mom taught me. Hugs. In fact, that's what one of my favorite filmmakers said. What's your favorite form of information? And he said human touch.
That's right.
Yep.
Because and you'd be surprised how many people have come up and just needed a hug. And how and they're looking at me and they're going, how did you know that I needed a hug? And the reason why I knew this was because basically I'm the same as you. I have
Yeah.
feelings, I'm a human being, and we are vulnerable. And
Yeah.
sometimes we can't move from point A to point B unless we are encouraged by someone else who has experienced that, and they know what tools to use to make that positive movement happen. And sometimes all of that can be accomplished through a sincere hug. And this is why I tell people hugs are free. You have to pay for the CDs and the posters and the t-shirts and the hats, but hugs are free.
Dude, I love it because you're hugging me through the internet. This is called video online conferencing, and I feel a hug coming through. So,
It's
are you?
vicarious. It's vicarious, but it's genuine.
Yeah, I believe me. Dude, I've been so touched by your spirit through singing and playing instruments for so many years. This is a real honor and a pleasure. Are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
I'm not afraid.
Yeah. Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
My earliest memory ever. Hmm. Okay. My earliest memory is when I was 5 years old, and my grandmother, my mother's mother, my grandmother, who was a full blood Choctaw Indian, she's full blood Native American Choctaw, and she noticed something about me, and so she taught me to sing, and then she took me to church when I was 5 years old, and she put me up in front of the congregation, and she had me sing the song that she taught me. And the name of the song was Jesus, When Trouble Burden You Down. Jesus, I know you'll be I know that you'll be around. Oh God, thank you. Amen. And I sang that, and these little old ladies in the front row started crying. And so I stopped and ran to my grandmother and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Grandma, Big Mama. I'm sorry. Why are they crying? What did I do wrong?" And she said, "No, no, baby." She grabbed me and put me on her lap and hugged me and says, "You didn't do anything wrong." She said, "You touched them." That's
Yeah.
why they were crying. They weren't crying pain, they were crying for joy.
Yeah.
That's my earliest memory in this life before, a lot of other things happened.
It's an amazing, evokes James Joyce invented a word in Finnegan's Wake. It's laugh tears. He took the word laughter and added an A and an S and turned it to the human condition. You laugh and you cry. So there for a second, you were wondering why are they crying sadness? And no, she was saying, no, that was happiness.
Exactly.
You touched them.
Hmm.
So did your parents raise you a particular religion?
I was born in San Jose Hospital, O'Connor Hospital, which is a Catholic hospital. I was baptized Catholic, and my mom put my brother and I in Oakland, California, with her mother and father. We stayed there because she was working in New York, and so I was going to Catholic school, but my brother wasn't because he wasn't born at that Catholic hospital and he had not been baptized Catholic. And so, therefore, my grandmother told my mom, "Listen, we can't do this. Taking him to one school, having these special clothes that he has to wear, and then taking his brother to the public school." She says, "If you want me to take care of these kids, they're both going to public school and they're both going to my church, which is the Baptist church." End of story.
Do you pray?
Every day. I pray before I eat a piece of toast. I pray for the homeless. I pray for all my friends and their families that might have any kind of health issue. I pray for peace on the world and they will stop the fighting and the wars. I pray that the devil is taken down. I call the devil Putin, and I hope he's taken down by Lewinsky, who of all those people that Putin has killed over there. I pray for that every day. I thank God for waking me up again this morning. I ask for guidance, and I thank Him for the guidance that He has given me so far. And then I pray for all my friends and relatives, and I pray for those who I know. Say, for example, one of my friends' wife has cancer. I pray for her. Another one of the guys in the band, his wife has kidney problems, and she has to do dialysis, and she's waiting for a kidney transplant. I pray for another friend of mine named Robert Kramer, who him and his girlfriend in Chicago got in a car accident. It was not their fault, but he's still in the hospital and he had to go through 2 or 3 different surgeries. Okay. And then I pray for guidance. But I do all of that every morning after I have my ritual, which is 8 ounces of room temperature crystal geyser spring water, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, a half a lemon, a big big teaspoon or tablespoon of honey, and I choose to use Manuka honey now from New Zealand because I think it's the best because they actually make medicine using Manuka honey. Out of all the honeys in the world, they chose this honey, and so I use that. And then I pray, and then after I pray, and then I have breakfast. I have a smoothie, coffee, toast with honey and butter and peanut butter. But the smoothie is the most important thing because that's food. Body doesn't have to break it down. It goes in there and it turns into pure energy.
I'm a juicer. It's similar. Thank you, man. So,
I juice too.
yeah.
My
So,
grandmother on my father's side taught me how to juice, and I believe juicing. I believe that kidney dialysis isn't really necessary if you understand the process of juicing and what it does for the human body.
yeah.
I don't
To
think
me,
I don't think I don't think dialysis is necessary if you treat the body right and you give it what it needs. And the body needs vegetables, raw vegetables that you get from juicing. I don't know what you put in yours, but mine is it works. And
I do.
you know what the purpose of juicing is? What's your purpose for juicing?
I had the yuppie stomach disease, and everybody eats Pepto Bismol, and in the health food store guy says you got to juice cabbage. So for 20 years, cabbage, carrots, ginger, greens, uh, oranges, lemons, and I haven't had a cold in 20 years, and I don't have any stomach queasiness anymore. So
Well,
that's
that's great.
yeah, it
That's
works.
fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. No, well, yeah, but it also does a lot of other things too. Like, I believe the reason people have dialysis and the whole thing about the kidneys is because they don't flush it out.
yeah, yeah. I do.
There's a lot
Yeah,
of things that that the kidney and the liver, those are filters,
yep.
and what they
Exactly.
filter out is all of the bad stuff. I can't, no, I don't have it at the tip of my tongue because there's so many questions and thoughts going through my head. But uh,
But you're aware of health, and I appreciate it, Napoleon, and it shows. The way you dance and perform music is unbelievable. My wife was praised. She's a pro jazz singer, and she was praised by UB Blake, and he played music till he was 100 years old.
why not? Yeah,
And I can see you for another 20 years easily.
easy,
But
easy,
but
easy.
but we were on Gray. I mean, we were on praying. If God does exist, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
Like what would I like him to say to me after I die?
Yeah,
I don't think he says anything. I think he just moves me on to the next to the next body, like he did this one.
yeah. And do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
They're both, in my
Yeah,
opinion. I
yeah,
think they're used, and I think some of them are just evil. I mean,
yeah,
hey, they just are, and they chose that.
yeah.
They're comfortable with it. Otherwise, they would change it or they would reject it. And the fact that they don't, and they actually obviously recognize it because it's a part of their character and personality. Well, there you go.
This it's really hidden question is how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I'll just set it up with a couple. Alan Watts says if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. JFK said, don't forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. But the basic question is, how do you, Napoleon, advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. I agree with that.
Then how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy?
Give it no value, give
Yeah,
it no priority, give it no existence in your life. Say
yeah,
to it when you recognize it, excuse me, I'll be right back. Hold that thought. Don't move. Stay right there. I'll be right back. And
no
then
worries.
never come back.
That is you are a smart man. Well, Nassim Taleb said games were created to give non heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who a hero is. And Gregory Bateson says if the criminal gets caught, does he go, whoa, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff that day? Or does he go, whoa, I did something morally and socially wrong? So the basic question is, does punishment work?
I think punishment works because it's a corrective tool.
Yeah.
It's a corrective tool to send a message to the character of the person who is creating the crime that really is this the outcome you were expecting?
Yeah.
Is this what you want? Is this the life you want to lead? Is this who you are? And if
Yeah.
it is, do you recognize it, and do you also, accept it? And if you do, well, what you're experiencing now is only going to get worse.
Yeah. Napoleon James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin 100 years ago. He said, this is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree? Years later, Faulkner said, sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
I agree. Why don't we just live life? Because if you go and watch someone project life, in a play or a musical or something like that, well, then you're saying that you can't do it on your own.
Yeah.
And I say you can do anything you want to do until you say you can't.
Yeah.
And I say if you remove the apostrophe T, then that means that you can. And once you don't give up, once you accept the fact that it's not impossible for you to achieve what you're trying to achieve, um, it's the road forward for you, and you will be satisfied with that. You don't need to go someplace else. Just take this for example. Suppose it was before the time where you could go to a quote movie and
Yeah.
watch a play. What
Yeah.
would you do then?
Yeah.
This is why my brain goes. Or what if what if that outlet didn't exist?
Yeah.
How would you move forward?
Yeah.
It's called believing in thyself.
Yeah. Well, we've tried to explore the first human invention, and people say tool. One person says the line, like George Carlin says, the job of the comedian is to draw the line and then cross it. Maybe the first thing is other, understanding that there's another person. But the great theater guy in South America says first human invention was theater. So that sort of incorporates everything. So, why do you think the cave artists did art? What was their motive?
I think the brain and different people have different levels of knowledge in their brain. And I think the ones who started drawing figures or trying to recreate in a drawing, depending on what kind of tool they use to draw something on the wall or something on a rock, they were motivated by trying to have a different perspective of looking at it. For example,
Yeah.
if you do something, for example, if you write a piece of music, for example, okay, you have this idea that coming through the tunnel, and it's a music, and you hear the music and you hear the melody. Well, then you write it down, okay, and then you play it back. Well, now it's out, and you can hear it coming back to you. But what also happens in that process is that you move it out of the tunnel, and therefore it doesn't interfere with the rest or the next part of that has to come through the tunnel. Because
Yeah.
once you move it out and you can look at it and and, and look at it in its perspective, and then the next information comes through and it continues and continues. You remove it from the tunnel, you put it away from you into a perspective that you can look at it, touch it, play it, feel it, hear it, and the next part of the information comes through, and it continues to come through until whatever it is that your mind is working on is completed.
Yeah. Napoleon, what was that tipping point in your life where you found that music was your calling? Like you said, this story of your grandmother and singing, that was beautiful. But at some point, you're going to high school and college and you're learning instruments. Where were you going? This is my calling. Where's that tipping point?
The tipping point was the first time that when I was 7 years old. And I was hit by two cars, and I didn't die, and I didn't have any broken bones or anything. And they operated on me by putting a tube through my temple and having a vacuum type apparatus to vacuum the blood off my brain. And I didn't have any bruises and no broken bones. And when I went back to school, they kicked me out of school because they told my grandmother that my brain was going to explode because I was learning too fast. And when I finally came back to school a year later, they put me back a grade. After 1 month, they put me up to the grade I should be. And after 3 months, they moved me up a grade ahead of the grade that I should be. And then I started hearing classical music in the trees. I would sit in class and I heard this music coming from the trees. And one day, this group of people came through and they said, "We're looking for some children to be in a pageant, the March of the Toys. And do you have any extraordinary children?" And my teacher said, "Yeah, take him, because he says he hears music coming out of those trees." And I keep telling him he's daydreaming, and he swears that he hears music coming out of those trees. Take him. They took me. We went to practice, and the music that I heard coming from the trees was the music that they used for the pageant. It's called the March of the Toys.
Oh,
That was the beginning.
that is so happy because they asked Sun Ra, you worked with Fletcher Henderson. Did he influence you? And he goes, "No, the birds and the crickets influenced me." That same thing that Eric Dolphy said. "Where'd you get your sound?" He says, "From listening to the crickets in East LA."
Me and the birds, we have a symphony every
Yeah,
time. I mean, I come home and we have a symphony. Once I get them started, they won't stop. I have to go in and close the door. And in the
yeah,
morning, the same thing. I record some symphonies that I do with the birds, and they try to mimic me, and I try to mimic them. The birds are sending you information because they have free will.
yeah,
There's nothing suppressing their energy or their desire to be happy and to sing like a bird.
yeah.
That's where the phrase comes from. Sing like a bird.
You do indeed. And so, this is about your own composition. A screenwriting teacher told me a great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process when you're writing a Napoleon song?
What role takes place? Truth. I do everything based on truth. Frank, one of the reasons that Frank he recruited me, and he did it, and he was very careful how he did it, because he did it by not insulting me, because he didn't tell me that he wanted me to be his lead singer. He said, "I've never had a front man, and you are my front man.
Yeah,
I've been looking for you for a long time." And then I didn't understand why he was so convinced that I was the person that he had been looking for so long. But when I started working with him, he says, "I need you to do everything I saw you do in those 2 hours in Hawaii that I saw you, except I need you to do everything I saw you do, but I need you to do it to my music." And when I went and listened to his band, that's when I realized that this music is a little bit ahead of its time. And perhaps time will not catch up to it.
yeah,
But I know why he needs me now. Just listening to it, he needs someone to interpret this stuff.
yeah,
So therefore, there you're going to find a whole lot of bootlegs or recordings where in Pygmy Twilight or in Cheapness, you hear me going off script
yeah,
and just saying all and making up another song.
yeah,
For example, I'll give you a very minute example that's easy to understand because everyone knows. But I ad libbed all the time. But the
yeah,
fact of the matter is, my ad libs made sense because I always use truth
Yeah.
as the source for everything I ad lib. Not only truth, but I connected it with something that all of the other members of the ensemble experienced or we had a conversation about. That
Yeah.
way, when I ad libbed it while we were playing in a section, what Frank would that he would manufacture within the arrangement, because he knew that I could make up a song on the spot, just like
Yeah.
that. And was
Yeah.
wondering, people wondered, how can you do that? And I said, it's easy. I just told a story about what happened to us last night, what we talked about this morning, or
Yeah.
what we've talked about, what we are going to do. Now, I'll give you a prime example, one that's easy to recognize. If
Yeah.
you watch the Roxy movie,
Yes.
and at the end of the movie, when all these people from the audience are on stage freaking out, you might notice that I wasn't there. I was
Yeah.
hiding behind the marimba and the vibes with Ruth, because I didn't
Yeah.
want to be a part of that. But at any time, we were trained to watch Frank, because he gives us about, you have about a minute or so after he cues you to do something. And he said, wait a minute, this guy just started his vehicle.
That's all right. I can hear you
Oh, you
good.
can hear me? Okay, good.
Oh, yeah.
And anyway, I was standing behind there, and he told the people, he says, hey, because a lot of people were trying to come up on stage with the other people that were up there. And he said, no, no, no. Just stand right you are. You can do the same thing that they're doing. It's all right. Just stand up and have a good time. And he looked over at me and beckoned to me, and I knew what he wanted. He wanted me, and then he started a 8-bar shuffle. And he done, I said, oh, here we go. So I walked up to the microphone, and I used exactly what he said to the audience. It says, it's all right. Anything, stand up. Anything you want to do, just stand up. It's all right. And so the lyrics, I composed a song right then called Anything You Want to Do, It's All Right. Anything you want to do, it's all right. Because you know you came to the right place tonight. Give me some of that wine. And Frank, before he passed away, he went to ASCAP, and he said, there's a song that's not posted on the album as one of the tunes, but he says it's there, and it was written by Napoleon Murphy Brock, and he gave me credit at ASCAP for it.
Oh my God.
And
If
the
that
name of the song is "It's All Right."
it's all right. That
I
is a
made it
beautiful
up. I made it up.
it's a beautiful story. Thank you for telling me that. And Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. When you're writing a Napoleon song, how much are you thinking of your listener?
I don't necessarily put a big focus toward the listener. I just hope the listener is listening,
Yeah.
because listening is an art. And what I always compose about you, is most of the time is an experience that I had that can be um, related to truth, and I tell the
Yeah.
truth about that experience. If
Yeah.
it's positive, if it's negative, I delete it from my memory and from my existence and from the arena of my presence. I don't do negative.
Napoleon Yeah, Napoleon Frank said, I write music for myself. If other people like it, that's great. But I think in a way he was over romanticizing because he lived in a capitalistic society. And he said he knew if he hit these notes and sang these words, kids would buy his music and then he could write more music. So, I mean, does he, you know what I'm saying? What's your take on him saying, I write music for myself? I mean, I agree with him, but I also know he's got to be aware of his listener, don't you think, or
I don't
what?
think he's so much aware of them as he is aware of the fact that this music is coming through him, and he has to compose
Yeah,
it. He has to take it out of him, take it that's coming through him, and make it a tangible thing to where
yeah,
others can look at it, use it, enjoy it, embrace it, or use it within their lives to make their lives better. So
yeah,
he does do it for them, but he doesn't do it, or he didn't do it, focusing that I'm doing this for them. He says, I'm doing this because it's correct.
yeah. Wow. There's a line that you say, I think, in a Roxy that says, "Nothing is what I want." Did
That's right.
you did you make that up, or did Frank say that?
The whole thing about dummy up, I made up.
But
Frank
are
says,
you do
Frank
you
says, I want you to make up something to where you smoke a high school diploma with a gym sock. And he says, then I want you to make up something where you smoke a college degree with nothing in it. And so I went out to the truck and I made it up. And then he says, oh, I want to introduce you to this guy. His name is Jeff Simmons. He's going to be, he's going to do the banter with you. And so I said, okay. And so I explained to Jeff Simmons, okay, this is what we're going to do. And I knew, I says, well, this is going to be easy because Jeff Simmons is a white boy raised in a black neighborhood, okay?
yeah,
And so he had a natural, it's kinky hair, and he
yeah,
kept checking it out. But he was totally, uh, as it comes to mixing with the races and being part of all
yeah,
races, human beings, he was ambidextrous in that sense. So I knew it would be easy for him and I to do banter because whatever he said or whatever I said to him, he would recognize it because he was from that environment. He was from
yeah,
he was from that neighborhood. He
yeah.
knew what I was talking about, and so dummy up, is that he recognized that right away,
But
and
but
so
we
we use
know
that.
Napoleon, we know that Frank, raised a Catholic, did study Zen. And when you say nothing is what I want, he goes, a true Zen saying nothing is what I want. I've repeated that for 40 years, saying Frank taught me how to embrace contradiction. But indeed, did you study Zen? How did you come up with the line, nothing is what I want?
Nothing is what I want is part of truth. If that's nothing, well then nothing is what I want. I'll deal with it once you give it to me. But just in the transference of you giving it to me, you say, okay, here it is, but it's nothing. I said, well, if that's all you have to give, I'll take it because nothing is what I want.
But
And
did you ever?
but then I have a chance to mold it and use it in the way I want to, and
Yeah,
give it more value or less value. But just because another person says, "Well, it's nothing," doesn't mean that it's nothing. It
right.
means that they have decided that it's nothing nothing to them. Okay, but it doesn't mean that to me necessarily because I think for myself.
But that is an Eastern philosophy kind of idea, Zenish. Did you ever study Zen or Eastern philosophy?
No, I did not. I did not. I've never. I've always moved towards being a spiritualist because I believe in spirit guides. Because ever since I was hit by those cars, I've been guided by a spirit.
Yeah,
And when I accepted to be a clown in the pageant at the Oakland Auditorium while they played the March of the Toys, I understood when I was walking down there in my clown uniform why I was there when I heard this beautiful sound. And I turned around and started walking backwards. And I saw this guy playing a tenor saxophone. And I said, that's it.
yeah.
That's the
Perfect.
next. That's why I'm here. That's why I was guided here. That's why my spirit guide told me to do this because she knew that what I was supposed to experience next to make part of my inner being and a connection and an extension of me was that instrument.
Dude, you got ESP. The next question is exactly what you just articulated. McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness. So, knife and fork extends our teeth, the shutter in a camera extends our eyelid. What does the saxophone extend for you? What humanness?
It's an extension of my voice, and my voice is an extension of the saxophone and the flute. The
Yeah,
flute and the sax are extensions of my voice. Things that I cannot do with my voice and do them clearly, where they're transferred and they're communicated to and for and embraced because they feel it. If it's, I have these three instruments that are at my disposal to use to make that connection to the human beings with through my spirituality. And
yeah,
that's why I'm here. I'm here as a healer. My
yeah,
grandmothers both told me, and they were both Native American Indians. My father's mother was purebred Cherokee American Native Indian, and my mother's mother was purebred Choctaw Native American Indian. And they both told me you were here in another life and you were a healer. And
yeah.
so to now is an extension of what I necessarily don't remember being in another life, but I embrace in this life because I know it's me, because I recognize it. And these instruments are what I use. I don't play the saxophone to try to sound like John Coltrane. I
Yeah.
sing through the saxophone.
Yeah.
I sing through the flute
Yeah.
because it's an extension of my voice.
Yeah.
And then I also sing sing with using my voice, of which I still have 4 octaves, you know, to be an extension of my saxophone and my flute.
Yeah. And you're a great dancer too, but I want to thank you for
Frank called it exotic dancing.
you, and I want to thank you for healing me for 5 decades. I'm totally being honest. There's my friend says the 3 T's of music are technique, theory, and taste.
Okay.
Technique, you've learned how to play it. Theory, you know the structure. How does one acquire taste?
Acquires taste by, seeing the effect that it has on those that are there being affected by what you do, the sounds you make, the feeling that you send through the instruments that you're using to heal. And the thing about it is that everyone won't catch it, but nothing's perfect. And it's not how many you catch, it's that your message is sent and it is received, and it is embraced by those who are open.
Yeah. So McLuhan says song is slowed down speech. The reason cultures have different musical taste is ultimately connected to language difference. Any comment?
Uh, Cultures and taste, not necessarily always in that format. Music is, like I said a long time ago, in my opinion, is medicinal.
Yeah.
And it's there to make you feel better. And it's there to explain to you or to help you figure out what you're feeling and why you're feeling it at the time. But you
Yeah.
know what you feel. No one can suggest that you're not feeling something that you feel from a piece of music. Now, I might not like that piece of music that you're getting that in, that you're getting that embrace from. It might not be my taste, but
Yeah.
it's not important that it's my taste because it might not be for me. Maybe it's for you.
Yeah.
That's nothing wrong with that. All
Yeah.
things we do not necessarily have to embrace all things because all things we do not identify with. But the
Yeah.
ones we do identify with, what we do with that connection that it makes with us and that we make with it determines whether or not that it's it's useful for you.
Yeah, Napoleon, I asked George Clinton all these same questions, and he says, what kind of music do you like? And he says, the kind of music that pisses me off because I want to figure out why is it pissing me off? Because music, if music's a healing force, then how can, so is that funny? So what's more fundamental, music or language?
Well, my on that first question, and then I'll get to this one.
Yeah,
My theory is like Duke Ellington, and
yeah,
I told Frank the same thing when I met him. I says, well, I haven't heard your music anymore, and I'm kind of little puzzled that they don't play it on the radio because I listen to all stations, even the country stations.
yeah,
And I said because to me, music is either good or bad.
yeah,
I don't care what the genre is,
yeah,
and so that's how I look at it. I don't try to, dissect it and say, well, I got to fix it and figure out why I don't like the way it sounds. No, 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 no. It's either good or bad.
yeah,
It's either good for you or it's not good for you.
yeah.
Hello.
That's a user as a content. That's back to taste, though. Like you're not saying it's bad for everybody. If someone likes
That's
that,
right.
then it's working for them. Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yep. And so, what's more fundamental, music or language?
It's difficult because everybody doesn't have the ability to um, dictate their feelings or their thoughts through music because they don't have the instrument to use it with. Even some of
Yeah.
them can't sing. If you can't sing or play an instrument, how is it going to be a part of your language that you use to communicate? Huh? Okay, so it doesn't apply, in my opinion, in that case. I think um, if you have the command of a musical instrument, or if you've trained your voice, which is also an instrument, to be another tool of your communication, delivery. Okay, but everybody doesn't have that. Everybody doesn't. I've heard some people sing "Happy Birthday" and it was like, oh my God, that's god awful. But
Yeah.
it's not god awful. It's just that that's just not their tool. That's not their instrument. And music is hard. I mean, I had to learn how to read it. Frank Zappa. I mean, everything that we did, it was written on a piece of paper. It was a
Yeah.
manuscript piece of paper.
Yeah.
And then he gave me the freedom, and the rest of us the freedom to work between the lines,
Yeah.
because he said this is the foundation, and
Yeah.
he knew that we would use it properly. That's why he chose us individually and
Yeah.
selectively.
That's called the resonating interval. That's the in betweenness that you guys enhance so well. And tell me the name of an instrumental that makes you laugh.
That makes me laugh. I guess it would be "Don't You Ever Wash That Thing."
Yeah.
It's a combination of brilliance, genius, and simplicity,
Yeah.
and fun.
Napo- Napoleon, this is so fun. I really appreciate your time. Ruth Draper said, the key is to bring the audience up onto the stage and into the scene with you. It is they who must give you even more than you give them in the way of imagination and creative power. That sounds good, but how do you do that?
My whole approach to performing is to interpret the music that I am doing for the audience musically and in an animated fashion, and at the same time, overall, to create an arena of inclusiveness so
Yeah,
that they feel that they are a part of what they are experiencing coming from you at that moment. It's
yeah,
called making them and creating an arena of inclusiveness so they
beautiful.
feel like, that you're that 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 you're doing what you're doing is for them. You're
Yeah,
sharing, you're giving, and you must give to receive. This is why I
yeah.
always make my performance an inclusive performance, because then I get the feedback from them, or their smiles or their energy, saying, "Yes, you touched me."
Unbelievable. So well articulated. Napoleon Leonard Cohen said the only way you can sell a concert is to put yourself at risk. And if you don't do that, people know. What role does risk play in your creative process?
A risk is something that I leave in the dressing room, because when I come out on the stage and I do my pre-show warm up, I go on stage and I take no prisoners.
Where did you get that courage? Where did you get that confidence? What's the roots of that? The way you were raised or on your own?
I think it was the way I was raised, because I've always known since I was 9 years old that I was here for another reason. I've tried. There's been so many things that have tried to in this life that I'm in this body, the spirit that's in this body right now, but it just never worked. And the reason why is because I'm here for a reason, and I'm moving forward toward that reason that I was brought here. And along the way, I'm doing all the other things that my existence has been put here for, and it's been put here to do for others. And when you do for others, you do for yourself.
That is it. In fact, you evoked the great song Nature Boy, written by a homeless dude in my hometown, Venice, California, Eden Abez. It has the line, the greatest thing you'll ever learn is to love and be loved in return.
I love that line. I
What
love
amazing.
that line. What an amazing line. Yeah.
Here's Viola Spolin. If the audience cannot see your struggle to achieve something, they cannot root for you to achieve it. What role does struggle play in your creative process?
Struggle plays in my creative process. Struggle is something to always be overcome, because you can overcome it unless you say you can't, and then you're doomed. But if you look at it, if you confront everything that as if it with the idea that, well, no, I'm going to control this. I'm going to dictate what happens. If you want to ride, okay, but you're not going to interfere or get in my way, because what I came here to give is much more powerful and it's much more important than what you might like to sustain or detract from, or just stop me from doing, because what I do has more power because it's positive. And what I have to do, part of what I'm doing is giving, because you must give to receive, and you never know who needs. But if you put it out there, it will attach itself to that person. You'd be surprised how many people have come up to me when I told them hugs are free and just started crying
Yeah.
because they said, "How did you know?" And I said, "Hey, because I'm just like you. I'm real. I'm a human being.
Yeah.
And as human beings, we know we have something in common.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can't articulate what it is in particular, but at the end of the day, when we make the connection that sometimes can't be seen, but it's always felt,
Yeah.
then we understand, our, part of our reason for being here. I remember when I was 9 years old, my uncle, my mother's brother, he was going to high school, and they found out he could really throw a football. And the coaches said, "We're going to train you to be our quarterback because, wow, you're really good at that football." And he was working at the local grocery store called Charlie Chan's grocery store every day after school and half a day on Saturday. And he went and told the Charlie Chan, he says, "Listen, I can't work for you anymore because they told me I'm going to be a quarterback in high school on the football team." He says, "Yeah, well, what am I going to do?" And he says, "Well, why don't you hire my nephew?" And he says, "Well, how old is your nephew?" And my uncle told him, "Well, he's 9 going on 20."
That's you, the Napoleon. That's like 70. What is it? 70 years ago? 70 years ago, you were 20. That means you're 90 now.
How about that? How about that?
How about that? Time travel. Okay, Napoleon, Utah Phillips said anarchy is making rules for yourself and not other people. Who's entitled to make the rules?
I think the person that makes the rules is the creator of all things.
Yeah.
And they're transferred to you, and you have them embedded in you, whether you choose to recognize them or not. That's the question. Are you
Yeah.
going to recognize the things that the creator put within you? Because we all have the knowledge within us. Sometimes we ignore it, and sometimes
Yeah.
we think that that's not real,
Yeah.
but it is real. It is real, and we were all it was embedded in us when we were created.
Yep.
Do we choose to activate it when the time comes? That's the difference.
The wording on that is the etymological breakdown of the word freedom. Freedom is making rules for yourself and not other people. What does freedom mean to you now?
To make my own decisions, to choose if I want to engage someone else in, the explanation of what I'm going to do or the
Yeah.
decision I'm going to make. That's up to me. And
Yeah.
to two heads, I believe that two heads are better than one. And if there's someone I trust, well, I will maybe engage into that person, he or she, to get their thought about what I'm getting ready to engage in. And that way I have another way of looking at it, and it's not isolated to just one thought. I get another perspective from another human being that I trust and that I think is intelligent enough to comprehend the question that I ask and the statement that I'm asking for.
Ben Ratliff is a music writer. He says, I mean sound as a long function among jazz players, as a mystical term of art, as in every musician finally needs a sound, a full and sensible embodiment of their artistic personality, such that it can be heard at best in a single note. So me and you could hear Frank and go in a couple notes, go, that's Frank. He said, Miles was fragile and pointed. He used 2 words. Says Coltrane is slightly undercooked and urgent. If a music writer you really respected was going to summarize Napoleon's sound in 2 words, which 2 words would you go? He got me.
Gil Evans and Miles Davis.
Wow, that was good. So here's Frank in 69 in the LA Free Press. You mentioned Pauline Oliveira's work with sound above the audible and below, creating a mass. That was the question. Here's what Frank said. Not that it created a mass, it created something audible. It produced a some indifference tone, which happened to be located within the audible frequency range. By combining something so high you couldn't hear it and something low, so low you couldn't hear it, it yields something in the middle you could hear. Whether or not you like what you heard is in the middle is another question. The concept is brilliant. Any thoughts on this some indifference tone that Frank's talking about in the audible frequency range?
No, it's difficult because that's his explanation for how it relates to him.
Yeah,
It'd be difficult for me to elaborate on what he said because I didn't feel what he felt about what he was feeling and what caused him and what activated that thought or that feeling. It would
yeah,
be difficult for me to give a up or down to what he said because that's an individual it's an individual conclusion
yeah,
brought on by how he feels inside about everything that he was confronted with, sound wise or feeling wise.
yeah. Napoleon, what's more important, conviction or compromise?
I believe uh, I believe they both have their place. Compromise, I think, when you're dealing with other people, then it's not just you singly. Uh, I think compromise is a good thing because you get to move forward. Sometimes, if you don't compromise when you're dealing with more than just yourself, whatever you're trying to achieve can become stagnated. But if you're doing something alone, you have to have the conviction to go and get it done. And remember that, hey, I only did half of it. I need to finish. That's conviction to me. Compromise is that, okay, I'll come and do the I'll come and do the interview with you, but let's set up a time and make sure that it's comfortable for you and me. Let's compromise on the time, the day, and the format.
Really appreciate that. So, with your accomplishments in life, how do you rate these 3 elements: luck, skill, and ambition? What played the biggest role, second and third?
Okay. Um, Skill and ambition are the top two for me.
Yeah,
I'm inspired to do it. I developed the skill to get it to do it. I developed the skill that's necessary to complete whatever the ambition was. And the luck is that, yeah, I found a, an outlet to use it too, that was beneficial to me and others.
a poet said that poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
Truth.
2 of my film heroes say, ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas, there's no self expression. In fact, Cecil Taylor, who's listed on Freakout, said, he's just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through him. Is art making, music making more self expression or more your vehicle for whatever technologies, cultures, and environments are dominant?
Well, if he was talking about Frank, he understood something important, that each of us has something coming through us. Now,
Yeah.
as artists, whether you be a painter or a musician or a singer, it depends upon the tools that you're using and whether or not you decide that you want to do that, because you have to make a conscious decision about doing something like that. And when you do, there are some things that you have to push to the side to get to, if you want to get that particular thing done, because it might take more of you or need more of you to accomplish it. So you have to make a decision, you know, which is the priority? What should you do first? Or should you do instead of? It's a
What's your
priority that you make a priority. You have to choose.
yeah,
You can't do everything all the time, and you can't do everything. Period. You
yeah,
know, we are limited to some of the things we can't do. I can't fly, and neither can you, but we can walk.
yeah. Can art making, music making be egoless?
Yes, when we did the music with Frank. Excuse me. When he chose the ones that he chose in the group, that was the Roxy group, for example. Uh, in order for us to understand that he chose us for a reason, because he was making something special, we had to understand that ego could not be involved because he already knew what we possessed and had already molded into our musical character. And he was taking it a step further. He was taking all that we all possessed and putting it to something that was coming through him. But he needed what we already possessed and what we already created within ourselves and solidified as our this is our character. This is us. This is me. Ego doesn't work when you're creating something for others. Ego doesn't work when you're creating something that's magical, that's going to be so far ahead of its time. Because once you detach ego from it, well, then it's open and it's positive. Ego has a chance to connect negativity to it or to obstruct the free flow of the information that's coming from one to another through all that are involved.
Thank you. Napoleon, is perception reality?
To perceive is half reality. To conclude is either based on the fact that you perceived it, you followed your perception, and you made it into something tangible. Then, yeah,
Lewis Carroll says, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
not lately, no. Because the things that I believe in, I intend to achieve.
Yeah.
They're acquirable, but they're going to take a lot of time, energy, work, and focus on my part. And you know, I've already decided to do it. So it's just
Good.
a matter of time now.
Tell me one major element of your creativeness that's stayed the same and one major element that's changed in the decades you've been doing this.
Something that hasn't changed is my ability to know that I have something within me that has been molded through many, many aspects of my experience, and it has given me the confidence to know that there's very little I cannot do. And the other thing is that I don't deal with can't. I don't deal with shoulda, woulda, coulda. I deal with do it or don't do it. Get the
Yeah.
shit or get off the pot.
That's beautiful. Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
Procrastination,
And how did it become a strength?
because I designed a routine where procrastination could not breathe, and so it died. And
Wow.
instead, creation was left there, and that's what I used to move forward. And that's where I used to reject it. The whole idea that these numbers that they're giving us, that they condition us to, don't apply to me.
Yeah.
Because they say, people say, how old are you? I says, well, sorry to disappoint you, but I don't do age.
Yeah.
I do time.
Yeah.
Because if you don't make time for yourself, age doesn't matter.
Yeah. I do time. I want that line. That's a beautiful line. I don't do age, I do time. Fill in the blank. Anger can be a productive emotion when.
Anger can be a productive emotion when you need to protect yourself from a negative environment or a negative experience that's trying to bring itself into your arena of life. You reject it. Like I said, embrace the positive and reject the negative with extreme prejudice. Reject the negative with extreme prejudice. Now, extreme prejudice, I got that from, the movie, for Francis Ford Coppola movie, Apocalypse Now. I thought it was brilliant, you
Yeah.
know, with extreme prejudice. That pretty much says it. So I reject negative with extreme prejudice. And so what's left? I embrace the positive. And so
Yeah.
therefore, by embracing the positive and truth, the negative will be exposed to you immediately. You see it coming, and you have time to move out of its way to where it doesn't have any effect on you, or that, you know, it doesn't come into your arena of life.
Napoleon, I asked for 90. Can you do another 15 minutes? We've done
Well,
6. How much more time can you do?
another 5 or 10 maybe, not the
Okay,
15.
let's do 5 more. Again, I thank you for your
Okay.
time. If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Put on your seatbelt. Get ready for a nice ride. It's going to be interesting and fun.
How do you find peace of mind?
Peace of mind, accepting things we can't change, and then believing in the things that we can change and affect, and doing something about it. Do it now, worry about it later.
These are 5 quick Alan Watts questions off the top of your head in just a couple words. 1, who started it all?
I believe the infinite being. I believe God exists.
2, are we going to make it?
Not only are we going to make it, but we're going to be successful.
3, where do we put it?
We live we live with it within our means, and we live with it within our means. That's where we put it. Right here, right now.
Who's cleaning it up?
If you don't make a mess in the first place, you don't have to.
Is it serious?
It's as serious as life and the opposite of life. It's very serious,
Yeah.
because you have to pave the way for those who are going to come after you to have a place to be.
I asked my friend who wrote comedy with Robin Williams, can satire be destructive? He says that's the job of satire. But if me or you do a cartoon in a certain country, they kill us. Some people think dying is destructive. Frank said, watch the Nazis run your town. Now go home and check yourself. You think we're singing about somebody else. What's the function of satire?
Satire is to give another thought before an action that you take. I think
Yeah.
satire is to not take yourself too serious.
Yeah.
Have a sense of humor.
Yeah. What's a question that remains unresolved for you?
Question that remains unresolved for me:
Yeah.
why are people like that sometimes? Why are some people like that? It's not necessary. Being ugly, being cruel, being selfish, being greedy is not necessary. But some choose to have that as the character that they embrace. And my question is, why? It's
Yeah.
not necessary.
Yep. That's
I think you should treat people like you want to be treated. That's how I was raised.
hello.
Treat people like you want to be treated. And that's how I always start off, and I can find out if a person's character, because I treat you like I would like to be treated. And if
Yeah.
you don't respond in the same manner, that's when I understand that no, you're not necessarily someone that I want to spend time with, not even to have a beer. Takes
Yeah.
too long.
Well,
Takes
I
too
hope.
long to drink it.
Yeah, I hope next time we meet in person, I can give you a hug because I need a hug from Napoleon.
Well, remember, well, I can only say this: I sell CDs, but hugs are free.
You are the best. Okay, this kind of two part. We're wrapping up, and again, Napoleon, thank you. How has playing music shaped your behavior? And then interweave it as how has playing Frank's music shaped your behavior? Because there was a time in Napoleon where he was playing music pre Zappa. So, how has music shaped your behavior? And then, how has Frank Zappa playing Frank Zappa's music shaped your behavior?
Well, I got to be honest with you because I don't know when I'm going to move into my next being, but everything that I did before Zappa was in preparation for Zappa because that
Yeah,
was my destiny.
yeah,
And this is why I'm still able to do it now, because it's not something that was given to me. It was something that was created, developed for this reason. And all the other things that I do musically that are attached to this or that are seemingly in this arena, those are extras. But this is my destiny.
yeah,
That's why I'm able to do it. And this is why when people come up to me and says, you know, I've been listening to your voice in my house for 30 years.
yeah,
And it's not hard for me to understand because I went like, well, yeah, because the reason it was done the way it was done and the reason Frank had me do it instead of someone else. And the reason that they're putting all for the last few years now, they're only releasing the music that we did together during that time because that's the music that has substance.
yeah,
And when people say I've been listening to my parents played it and then I played it and I'm still listening to it and I recognize that it was you that I was listening to all those years because listening to you now has just confirmed that for me. It wasn't an accident. It
yeah.
wasn't. It wasn't a mirage. It wasn't. I wasn't tripping out. I wasn't high. It's really what I felt then, and it's what I feel now.
Then, how is playing music, Frank's music specifically, shaped your behavior?
It shaped my behavior because it gave me more tools to express the things that I am composing too,
Yeah,
from what's within inside me. It's given me more tools. It's given me more understanding of the things that are coming through me that I didn't necessarily. uh, I wasn't necessarily able to combine them with the other things that I had in my possession. Frank's music, it tears everything down. It tears everything down. There is nothing no is not no is not acceptable. Can do is acceptable. Ways to do things, it's not always in the book. Everything that you need to know to, to make your expression of what you feel tangible is not necessarily in a book. A lot of it comes from trial and error. A lot of it comes from sharing of knowledge from one person to another that has been enhanced to the level where you go, okay, now I understand it. Now I can utilize that myself even better because, okay, I thought so, but I didn't know. And now I do. And Frank's
yeah.
music helped me to fill the gap that was there where I was wondering, well, is this part of that? Is that part of this? No, it's all part of the same. It's all part of getting it right, understanding it better, and moving forward to utilize it, for why it came through you. Let it happen. Allow it to go through you, because the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
It's like, again, the resonating interval, the in-betweenness really inspired me throughout this time together, Napoleon. And I usually, I usually know an interview goes good when I tear up, and I've like teared up maybe 4 times. When did you last cry? What causes you to cry? Because I find you so inspiring. You have such confidence.
Sometimes I cry when things happen and people come up and they tell me that I inspired them.
Yeah.
And that does, because then I know that, hey, what I did had more value than inanimate objects that are given value these days.
Yeah.
Money you can get again.
Yeah.
Love and appreciation and the art of giving and the art of love and the art of caring for others as you care for yourself. The needs of the many sometimes might outweigh the needs of the few. But those are things when people come back and I get feedback and they actually take the time to come and tell me. And then sometimes many of them will say, because they say, I know you hear this all the time. And I say, whoa, whoa, whoa. If you don't come and tell me, I don't have a reason to come back.
Yeah.
If you don't tell me what you're feeling, if you don't tell me that what I'm sending out there, giving to you, for you, if you didn't embrace it and receive it, and if you don't come and tell me that you did, well, why should I do it again? Or why should I continue if it's not being, appreciated, if it's not being embraced, if it's not helping you in some even minute manner? Anything is
Napoleon,
better than nothing.
yep. Napoleon, I got 3 more, and I just want to insert a quickie bonus. A line that Frank said, agree or disagree. You can't come and laugh at the exact same moment. Agree or disagree?
Uh,
I'm glad you're laughing. I had to throw in one of my quirky ones.
okay, yeah. I'll have to pass on that one. That was
Okay.
that was a little bit.
But I tend to think people go, yes, no, you cannot come and laugh at the exact
I
same
don't
moment.
know about that. I don't know about that.
Okay, here's Milan Kundera. He wrote a book, Unbearable Likeness of Being. That is why I love writing, because the character that I'm writing about can go further than I can. So it sort of sounds like the characters you and Frank have created can go further than what he put down on paper and you're improvising. How can a character go further than you can as the creator?
Simply because the whole idea is that the interpretation of the character.
Yeah,
How true is the interpretation based on what the composer was intending?
yeah,
And the thing about it is Frank knew that about me, but I thought I was the only one that knew that about me.
yeah,
And the fact that he saw that in 2 hours, 2 hours and 15 minutes, I found it difficult to believe, because I said, how could he know me better than I'm the only one that knows what I'm doing, but
yeah,
he seems to know what I'm doing too. And he's
yeah,
suggesting that he can teach me in one day everything I need to know to go and do 2 weeks concerts in Europe with Jean-Luc Ponty, the Fowler brothers, Ian Underwood, Ruth Underwood, George Duke, Jean-Luc Ponty, and Ralph Humphrey. And I'm
yeah.
going, you must be nuts, you know, or you whatever you're smoking, give me some of that shit, because hey, listen, no way, dude. I knew Ralph Humphrey, George Duke, and Jean-Luc Ponty before I even met Frank.
Yeah,
Then I told him, if they're in your band, you must be damn good, because those are
yeah,
my idols. I said,
yeah,
these guys are the top of the line. I said, but he knew. I'll tell you one example. When I was in high school, they used to do these high school plays, musicals, you know, in San Jose High. And that was a lady who was the choreographer for the San Jose Light Opera Company. And she also had a dance school called Marie Patterson Dance Studio in Campbell, California. Well, she used to volunteer to come to San Jose High because she was friends with the musical director, Ross Bergantz, and to do the choreography for the high school students who were doing musical theater on a high school level. And she used to come and she did the choreography for a play we were doing called Guys and Dolls. And she went back to the San Jose Light Opera Company and she told them, I got the story later from my musical director, Ross Bergantz. She said, you got to come and see this kid. He's a ham. He's perfect. You got to have him with the San Jose Light Opera Company. And they said, okay. So they came and watched me in a high school play. And they came up to me and they said, you've got to come and work with us. We represent the San Jose Light Opera Company. And you need the training because you're halfway there because you're a ham already. And I said, well, that's not a really good way to get on my good side by calling me a piece of pork. I said, because why are you calling me a piece of pork? A ham. And they said, oh, you don't know what ham means? No, in theater, ham means that you're living what you're doing, that you enjoy what you're doing. I said, oh, really? I said, well, I thought you were calling me a pig. I didn't understand.
Right.
Well, she knew that what Frank knew.
Yeah.
That this was part of my character and my inner being. And I was just doing what I felt because I felt like doing what I feel.
Yeah.
And I tell musicians all the time, if I'm going to play with the band, I says, well, here's something we got to understand from the get-go. If we're going to do a concert together, I don't play the music. I live the music.
Yes.
And you have to live the music too. Otherwise, we can't communicate. But if you live the music, I guarantee you're going to have a much better experience than you came here thinking you were going to have. And more importantly, the audience is going to feel what we're doing because we're taking it to the other level. And the other level is you must give to receive. And it's more blessed to give.
Yeah. Amazing. Napoleon, it's amazing because it's so articulated throughout studying Frank for 50 years plus is that he knew how to pull out of people something they didn't even know was inside them. He sort of was not, what I'm saying, but this question goes along, two more and we're out of here. This goes along with Frank's line, you don't want to see what's behind my eyes. So Thornton Wilder said in 28, art is confession, art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your you've laid your cards on the table for almost 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't answered this.
No.
What's it really all about for you?
Well, here's the deal. I think I can answer your question by telling you one thing that I finally figured out after I joined the band. One of the several reasons that Frank brought me there was to give all of the other musicians who were all conservatory graduates a license to be silly.
Yes. Wow.
They said, but the only way it can happen is by they see someone who is on their level musically, but instead of just having the tools that were given to him in his studies of this specific instruments that he's using to project who he is or who she is, the whole idea is to have fun doing it and enjoy it. Because if you're not enjoying it, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
And so I came and I said, okay, I have the skill to read the notes on the paper as you do. I have the ability and the agility to play the music on my instrument, the same as you're playing it on your instrument. Now, with some of you like Ruth and George, I couldn't play it that fast and that articulate and that correctly, but I could play it, but not some of the speeds that they were able to play it at. But what Frank needed out of them was for them to relax.
Yeah.
And understand that after they had memorized all the music and we were playing it all because we had already memorized it, we didn't need those manuscripts. that we're supposed to have fun at the same time. And that means acting. That's okay. You have a license to act silly because look what this guy is doing. And he's a part of your ensemble that you
Yeah.
have embraced as the right thing to do. But here's another level that you too can arise to. You can arrive at this other level too, which is called having fun. Because when you have fun, you are animated. And when you're animated, you make the listener or the person observing you inclusive because that way they know you're not taking it too serious to where you're saying, like a classical art, like a classical musician who's no, 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 no. We go, no, 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 no. Oh, yeah. No, 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 no. Wow, wow, wow. We do the same thing he's doing, except we have fun
Fun.
because we are animated and it's like, yeah, you know, we have a license that we don't have to be so serious because we've already learned the music. We can already perform the music. It's spotless. Frank didn't allow mistakes, not even one note.
Yeah.
And we knew that. So
Yeah.
we were very particular and articulate in how we observed and absorbed every note, every time signature, even the ones that he brought to us that were not in the book of theory. Like he said, we said, well, what time signature is that? He said, there's no time signature. Just count to two, 1, 2.
Yeah. No, he
What do you
made
mean
up
just count to two, 1, 2? He says, yeah. He says it's called a 2 count. 1, 2.
he
It's called a
uses
one. It's called a 1 count. 1.
yeah. He used
It's
that
called a
word
5 count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
he used that word in Baby Snakes. He goes, just randomize it. He invented a verb. But this is so beautiful what you just said there, Napoleon. And I really appreciate it. The last question is, what gives you the most optimism?
When when what gives me the most optimism is when I do concerts and people come up to me after and they said, "This is my daughter" or "This is my son,"
Yeah.
and they didn't believe me, so I had to bring them to
Yeah.
see for themselves what I was telling them.
Yeah.
I told them that I saw you back in 1974 do this and sing this, and then I told them you weren't even thought of then, but now that you're born and you're almost an adult, I'm going to take you so you'll have the same experience I had because that same person is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And they said, no way. And he says, get in the car,
No way.
put on your jacket and get in the car. Watch. And the kids, they come up and they just going like,
Uh,
and then he shows them the videos and then they come and see me live and they go, how can you do that? How old are you? I says, well, sorry to disappoint you, but I don't do age. I do time. Because if I do age, then I can't do time.
yep.
And then if I do age, I'm not going to be here. But if I do time, I'm going to always be here.
Thank God you're going to always be here because,
Why not?
funky music is my favorite and fun is the key. Words evoke more than their meaning. Fun is the key.
That's
Funky.
right.
So,
That's right.
Napoleon, the first question is, what's the best thing for a human being? And Wilhelm Reich said the best thing for a human being is another human being. And they asked Groucho Marx the last question at the end of his life, what gives you the most optimism? And he said, other people. It's sure been a pleasure and an honor to spend this time with another person, especially because it was Napoleon Murphy Brock. Thank you so much.
Why not? You know what? One last thing I like to tell you, just in case you find yourself at a point where you're going like, if you go to the video on YouTube called "A Token of His Extreme,"
Yes.
and you watch Room Service,
Yeah.
that's when Frank and I had achieved thought transfer between us.
Yeah.
Everything we did is ad lib. Every time we did Room Service, it was ad lib. But the pinnacle of our creating thought transference between us, which is mostly what I have with hats all my life. Frank and I were able to achieve that. Go watch it.
Yeah.
Everything you see in that video of room service was never done before. It was ad lib then, and it was perfect.
It's
And
amazing.
we were reading each other's thoughts.
Yeah, amazing, Napoleon, because I was one of the 4 people who showed that with a video projector from a 3/4 inch video in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I
Wow.
convinced I it's written up in the book Cinema Ann Arbor, because I convinced, Marv Greifinger in her, them to send me a VHS copy, and we showed it. And believe me, I've been close to a token of extreme video my whole life. Thank you for being who you are, Napoleon. Even though I'm going to hit this end broadcast button, I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever.
No problem. But I'm telling you, they've really how should I say it, with technology, they've really improved it from the VHS look. Now they have it with the latest copy of A Token of His Extreme. It looks perfect.
I know it. And Frank was again saying ahead of his times to make that video at KCET right here in LA, PBS studio.
Yeah.
And cut in Bruce Bickford used to live in my backyard in a tent. Bruce Bickford's video, clay animation.
The whole time we were learning all that music, he was in the basement hearing it.
Yeah.
Of the rehearsal studio, 5831 Sunset Boulevard.
That's it.
Hollywood, California. Oh yeah, Bruce was always there. But yeah, that is it right there. Now, if you want to hear the best of my ad lib singing on Pygmy Twilight, where I got it to where I told the whole story, and it was as if, and I didn't write the lyrics down until 2008, and we did this in 1974.
Yeah.
The Edinburgh tapes that they released, the Edinburgh,
yeah,
Pygmy Twilight on that, where I start off saying, just a minute ago, somebody tried to give me some marijuana. And that really happened.
Yeah.
And that's why I said it. Because Frank was watching to see if I took the marijuana as he was tuning his guitar. He saw it. And that's why I said, no, dude, no, there's a time and place for everything. But all the lyrics I made up then was a combination that I had been trying different things in that arrangement. And I said, okay, here it is. But I always use truth to start the ad lib and the creating the story that everyone could identify with. So go listen to those lyrics.
Oh, I will. I love it. And, you typify, Wyndham Lewis said, the artists live in the present and write a detailed history of the future.
Exactly.
So that's what Be Here Now.
Oh, yeah.
Ram Dass, you live in the moment.
Yep.
And in living in the moment, you're creating a detailed history of the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I tell you, something told me because I saw it on YouTube and I listened to it, and so I actually wrote the lyrics down, but it was 2008. But I never wrote them down before that because I didn't need to, because what I told was truth. And it fit everything that Frank wanted to happen right then and what we were doing together right then for the ensemble that was playing right then. And it was real-time creation, composition. We composed right on the spot.
Yeah. Amazing.
But check out the lyrics. They make sense. You say it sounds that, but if you go from the beginning to the end of what I'm saying, it all makes sense. And it's all about life.
Yeah. It's like the cliche goes, Napoleon, if you can't say it, sing it. If you can't sing it, dance it.
That's
and there's
right.
you've encompassed it all because you're very articulate.
And those are my tools.
You're very
what you said.
You're very articulate, but you're also the greatest singer on earth and the greatest dancer.
You're picking up where Frank left off, huh? With your compliments. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gary. I
love
really appreciate this. I had fun.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to hit the end broadcast button. I don't want to, but I know we'll keep talking forever and ever. Thank you.
You gotta send me a copy after you get ready to broadcast it, okay?
I'm going to send you a copy right now. Thank you.
Love you, brother.
Love
One
you.
last thing.